Welcome back to Northern Tales, where stories of love, sacrifice, and change from Northern Nigeria come alive. Today's story is called When Love Isn't Enough, Farouk and Mairo's story. It begins with a love that blossomed under mango trees in a secondary schoolyard, defying wealth and status. A young girl from a comfortable home and a quiet boy from a modest family. Two hearts determined to be together despite the odds. But as marriage, children, and wealth entered their lives, one question lingered. Was love alone enough to hold them together? Sit back and let's begin. Mairo and Farouk fell in love in secondary school and had been married for 15 years. Mairo was born into the comfortable home of Alhaji Suleiman Dikko, a civil servant that has risen to the rank of permanent secretary in Kaduna State, and she was the daughter of his second wife, Hajia Safia. He had three wives. Her father was a man of few words, respected for his integrity and quiet dignity. Her mother, however, was different. Safia was kind, considerate, and made no trouble with her co-wives. However, she lived for appearances, always eager to sit among the wealthy and the powerful. To her, marriage was less about love and more about prestige. Although Safia was the daughter of a poor farmer that a poor farmer that Alhaji Suleiman married her from Danja local government area in Katsina State. Since she moved to Kaduna, she has integrated well into the city life, and you will find her belonging to one women's association or the other. Farouk, on the other hand, grew up in a modest household. His father, Malam Haruna, was a well-regarded Arabic school teacher, known in the community for his wisdom and humility. Farouk's family lived simply, holding fast to values of honesty and respect. They did not have wealth, but they had dignity, something Alhaji Suleiman always admired. It was in secondary school in Kao that Meiro and Farouk's paths first crossed. She was the outspoken girl with a ready laugh. He was the quiet boy who excelled in his books. Their friendship grew slowly, blossoming through exchange notes during lessons and long conversations under the mango trees that shaded the schoolyard. What began as study sessions turned into something deeper. By their final year, Myro knew where her heart belonged. One afternoon, as they walked home together, she looked at him with a mischievous smile. Farouk, she said softly, when will you send your family to meet mine? You know we will soon finish secondary school, and my mother is already asking me to present a suitor. He laughed nervously, adjusting the strap of his worn school bag. Myro, you know I love you, but I am afraid I don't have the money to marry you. He paused, then continued, I don't think your mother will ever allow it anyway. But she lifted her chin with quiet defiance. I don't care what she says. My heart has chosen. After secondary school, their paths diverged. Farouk enrolled in a polytechnic to study business administration, while Mero's education came to an abrupt stop. Her mother insisted that a girl's place was not in the classroom, but in the home, preparing for marriage. Still, the bond between her and Farouk did not waver. He sent her letters, he visited when he could, and a lot of phone calls kept their love alive. Suitors began to knock on the door of Alhaji Suleiman's house. Big merchants, ambitious young men, even an old politician sent word. Each time Hajia Safia urged her daughter to agree. Look at you, she would say in exasperation. So beautiful, so young. These rich men want you. Why waste yourself on the son of an Arabic teacher? What future can he give you? Can decency buy you a house in GRA? Can good character put you in the best women's club? But Mero only shook her head. I don't want their wealth, Mama. I want peace. I want Farouk. Her father, though silent, was moved by her determination. One evening, after yet another quarrel with his wife, he told her quietly, Safiyat, don't despise them. Madam Haruna's family may not be rich, but they are people of honor. I would rather give my daughter to a man of dignity than a man of arrogance. And so, despite her mother's protest, the marriage was agreed. Farouk had just completed his diploma. He had no house, no savings, and no stable job. His only option was a small room in his parents' compound. On their wedding day, Mero's furniture, the traditional kaya, was carried not to her new home, but back to her father's house. There was simply no space for it where she and Farouk would live. Yet, when Mero entered that small room with its single bed, she felt no shame. Farouk looked at her with love in his eyes and whispered, Mairo, ki hakuri. One day I will build you a house of your own. For now we have each other, and that is enough. She took his hand and smiled. Even if all we have is one mat, Farouk, as long as it is with you, I am content. Farouk's family welcomed her warmly. His mother embraced her like a daughter, saying, Our house may be small, but our hearts are wide enough for you. For a while, love seemed to conquer all. But outside their little home, the whispers never ceased. Hajia Safia carried her discontent to every women's meeting. Imagine, she will lament, my daughter is married to a man with nothing. All her beautiful kaya is stacked in my sitting room because she has no house of her own. What kind of life is that? The words reached Mero's ear more often than she cared to admit. She tried to ignore them, clinging instead to the warmth of Farouk's love. But sometimes at night, as she lay awake beside him, doubts crept in. Was love enough to silence a mother's scorn, to shield them from the weight of poverty? For now, she chose not to answer that question. She only held Farouk closer, whispering to herself that love would carry them through. Mero's first days in her husband's family house were marked by adjustment and discovery. The compound was not large, but it pulsed with life. Children's laughter echoed in the afternoons, and neighbors passed through often, greeting with the warmth of community. Farouk's parents treated her with kindness that softened the edges of her new life. Her mother, fondly called Gogo Talatu, would often pat her back after morning prayers. My daughter, she said one dawn as they sipped steaming kunu together. This house may not have riches, but we have peace. Treat it as your own, and you will never lack love. Mero smiled greatly, feeling the sincerity in the woman's voice. She became especially close to Zainab, Farouk's teenage sister. The girl adored her new sister-in-law, trailing behind her as she cooked, washed, or went to the market. They giggled over recipes, shared secrets about the neighborhood, and sometimes sat under the neem tree where Mero taught her knitting. Slowly, Zainab became both sister and friend, easing Mero into her new life. But not every day was without challenge. One afternoon, a woman arrived at the compound carrying only a small bundle wrapped in an Ankara cloth. She was introduced as Amina, Farouk's older cousin. At 30, she had just completed her iddah, the mourning period after her husband's death. With no space in her father's house, she had come to stay. Her father had long passed, and as it is often the fate of women, her only portion of inheritance was half of a single room, which was already taken by her divorced younger sister and her three children. Amina's arrival added a new rhythm to the house. She was dignified but wary, her eyes holding stories of both loss and resilience. In the evenings, she often sat quietly in the courtyard, staring at the fading light. Moira, with her natural kindness, reached out to her. One evening, as they peeled granules together, she said softly, Allah ya baki hakuri Amina. It cannot be easy to start again after so much. Amina sighed. It is not easy, my sister. To bury a husband is one pain, but to return to a family with no space to call your own, that is another. Sometimes I feel like a guest everywhere I go. Myro placed a gentle hand on hers. Here you are not a guest, this is your home too. From then, a bond grew between them. Amina began to confide in Meru the harshness of her in-laws during her widowhood, how her four children had been separated from her, and the loneliness of being shuffled between houses, and the silent judgment of relatives who saw her as a burden. Yet she also admired the quiet harmony she saw in Meru and Farouk. Indeed, theirs was a love that lit up the compound. Farouk, despite his long days searching for work or helping his father, always returned with a smile for Mairo. Sometimes in the evening, they will sit together in their tiny room, whispering dreams of the future. One day, Farouk said, holding her hand, I will build us a house where no one can question your place, a space enough for your kaya and more. Meiro's eyes softened. Farouk, my heart is already home with you. The rest will come when Allah wills. Their affection did not go unnoticed. Even Amina, who had seen the bitterness of a troubled marriage, felt a flicker of hope as she watched them. She would often remark to Zainab, see how your brother looks at her, as if she is the only person in the world. That is rare, Zainab. Guard it well when your time comes. Zainab would laugh shy and wide-eyed. Her admiration for her sister-in-law deepened. The compound, though modest, became a place of shared life. Women cooked together in the open kitchen, children fetched water and played with reckless joy, and evenings were filled with the call for askar from Malam Haruna's corner, where he led the household in prayers. There were occasional quarrels over space, chores, or visiting relatives, but compared to the restful airs of her mother's house, Mero found a grounding peace here. Still, the voices from outside never entirely faded. Whenever Mero visited her parents, Hagia Sophia made sure to remind her of what she considered failure. All your beautiful kaya still sitting in my parlor, she would complain to her friends in Mero's hearing. Married into a house where she has no space of her own. Love does not buy dignity. Myro kept silent, choosing not to argue. Deep inside, she wondered, was her mother right? Could love truly stand against the weight of poverty and circumstance? Yet, every time Farouk's hand found hers, steady and warm, her doubts melted away. For now, their love was enough, and that love held her through the noise of the world outside. That love held her through the noise of the world outside. Amina stayed with Miro most days when Farouk was in the market trying to make ends meet, sometimes buying small goods to resell, sometimes helping his father with school record. Amina became her companion, her confidant, her steady hand. When Miro discovered she was pregnant with her first child, it was Amina who celebrated with her the most. Alhamdulillah, Amina said, pressing her palm against Miro's still flat tummy. Allah has favored you quickly. Your womb is blessed. From that moment, Mero regarded Amina as more than a cousin-in-law. She became an elder sister, guiding her through the anxieties of first-time motherhood. Amina taught her what foods to eat, how to rub shea butter on her stretching belly, how to whisper prayers at dawn for safe delivery. Farouk too was grateful. He often marveled at the way his wife leaned on Amina, how her wisdom lightened Nero's fears. One evening, as they sat together after supper, Farouk admitted, Wallahi, I thank Allah for bringing Amina to this house. She gives you strength in places where my words fall short. Mero smiled. She has become my sister. Without her, this journey would feel heavier. When the time came for antenatal visits, it was Amina who always escorted Mero to the hospital. She knew the nurses, knew when to go early to avoid long queues, and knew which midwives had gentle hands. Sometimes, while waiting, she would share her own stories of labor, the pain, the prayers, the relief of hearing a newborn cry. In the 8th month, Mero began to wake restless at night, her body heavy with growing child. At 9 months, one particular night, around 2 a.m., he said in pain, clutching her tummy. Farouk was alarmed. He rushed to Amina's room and knocked urgently. She opened the door without hesitation, her scarf hastily tied around her head. Farouk's eyes were wide with fear, but Amina remained calm. She entered their room, placed her hand gently on Mero's belly, and listened to her groans. Not yet, she said with certainty, her voice steady. The pain is still far. If we rush now, they may end up cutting you unnecessarily in the hospital. Let us wait until the contractions are strong and closer together. Mero, sweating and anxious, clutched Amina's hand. Are you sure, Amina? What if something goes wrong? Amina leaned closer and said, Trust me, my sister. I have been here before, many times. You will know when it is time. Until then, breathe and pray. That night, Amina stayed up with them, whispering verses of the Quran, making tea for Farouk to keep him awake, and reassuring Meru that what she was feeling was the beginning of motherhood's trial. Her presence wrapped the room in courage. By dawn, the contractions had grown stronger, and Amina finally nodded. Now, Farouk, let's take her to the hospital. This is the hour. And so, with Amina's wisdom guiding them, they set out for the hospital, the first test of their young marriage unfolding in the dim light of a Kaduna morning. The hours of labor stretched, but at last, Mero delivered safely, a healthy baby boy they named Ahmad. His arrival brought joy to both families and bound Farouk and Mairo even more tightly together. Their modest beginning now carrying the weight of new responsibility. Life began to shift after Farouk joined his cousin in business. The man was well connected, a seasoned trader with partners in Saudi Arabia and China, importing furniture, carpets, and luxury goods. Under his guidance, Farouk leaned onto him and he learned quickly. Though his formal education had ended with a diploma, he absorbed the art of negotiation, the patience of trade, and the cleverness of timing. Within a few years, Farouk was no longer the quiet young man with nothing but dreams. He rented a two-bedroom house of his own, moving Mairo out of the family compound when she was heavy with their second child, a beautiful girl they named Khairat. Mero's bond with Amina remained, though her own life had become more complicated. After Mero's second child was born, Amina remarried twice, but both unions ended within months, each one leaving her bruised but not broken. She found solace in her faith, in her children, and in the simple friendship she still shared with Mero. Meanwhile, Farouk's fortunes grew steadily. From one shop, he expanded to several across town. And soon he was making plans to open a branch in Abuja. He was sharp in business and fair in his dealings, the kind of man people trusted. Despite his growing wealth, he remained gentle at home, ensuring that Meiro lacked nothing. He bought her jewelry, the latest laces, and made sure she accompanied him on Hajj or Umrah each year. While he held meetings with his partners abroad, she basked in the opportunity to display their success, her presence glittering at weddings and naming ceremonies. Wealth changed everything. Even Hajia Safia, once dismissive of Farouk, became his loudest advocate. At every women's gathering, she boasted of her son-in-law's generosity and her daughter's fine wardrobe. My Mairo, she would say proudly, wears lace that costs more than some people's houses. The same talk that once scorned, now praised with abandon. But beneath the surface of their glittering life, cracks began to form. Farouk, though grateful for his success, often felt a little ache. He knew he was drifting away from his children, strangers growing in his house. He longed for evenings of laughter with his wife and the little ones. But more often than not, Miro was away, attending meetings, society meetings, visiting friends, or preparing for yet another ceremony. Her friendship with Amina began to suffer too. At first, they still sat together, reminiscing about the early days in the compound. But gradually, when Miro's new friends came to call, society women with powdered faces and loud laughter, she became quick to put Amina in her place. Small cutting remarks slipped into her speech, subtle reminders that Amina was divorced, that her life lacked the sparkle of wealth. Amina bore it in silence until one day the words cut too deep. You are beneath me, Amina, Mero snapped during an argument. You only envy me because I have what you will never have. Amina's eyes burned with pain. But she held her dignity. Without another word, she turned and walked away. That was the end of their friendship. For the first time since she got married, Mero stood without the steady anchor of Amina by her side. She didn't feel the loss immediately. The clinking of bangles and the laughter of her new circle of women drowned it out. But the absence of her oldest confidant lingered in the quiet corners of her life. And so, as Farouk's empire expanded, Amero's world grew glittery and loud. The harmony in their early love began to tremble. Neither of them knew it yet, but the seeds of change had been sown. And that is the beginning of Farouk and Mero's story. From the humble compound where love seemed to conquer all, to the glittering halls of wealth where cracks quietly began to show, their journey reminds us that love may build a home, but it takes more than love to keep it standing. Join us in part 2, where Mero's world takes a dramatic turn as new influences creep into her life, tasting the very bond she once fought so hard to protect. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Northern Tales. See you in the next episode.